You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell, I'm Dave Griffiths. Once again, and perhaps for the final time, our fearless producer, Matt Adams, out for this week with the Delphi trial still continuing here in central Indiana. So we do hope to have Matt back as soon as possible. The Indianapolis Colts, losers last week on Sunday Night Football to the Minnesota Vikings. We'll recap that game. It is Bills week here in central Indiana as Buffalo comes to town, and a team that the Colts have played fairly well against, especially for their stature in the league and the Bills' stature in the league. They seem to have matched up reasonably well against them in recent seasons, of course under some different head coaches at that time, nevertheless. But we will also start with some news around the league, and starting with the Colts and Jets will not be on Sunday Night Football, as we learned this week.
Shocker.
I know, right?
Shocker.
You never know, because you never know if the league wants to leave Aaron Rodgers in prime time, because he's always a storyline. But with the Jets kind of fluttering downwards and the Colts kind of fluttering downwards in the standings, this is not overly surprising, chap, as the Colts just were on Sunday Night Football now last week. So this was made, this first, I think, move was made with the idea, the NFL, in the back of their heads that, you know what, we don't need them twice, so we can flex them out in a couple of weeks, which they have now done.
You sort of earn prime time, and the Colts just haven't done that. I mean, they were given the one Thursday night or the one night game when the schedule came out. So now they've flipped it, but you still only get one. When you're not a relevant team, you know, welcome to 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Because that's what you get, and that's life. And the team went through this at the opposite end with Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck to some level. You're playing 5, 6. The Manning might have played 7 with Flex's primetime game. So it's what it is. I selfishly I prefer 1 o'clock. I mean,
it's a lot easier for us.
You know, from not that the fans care, but on the late game gets over at, I don't know, 11:15, and then you get quotes. If I don't travel, I get quotes, and I'm sitting down to write at 12, and you go to bed at 2:30.
Yep.
So, but it is a badge of honor that you earn primetime games. Now, some teams get them anyway. You know, the Raiders end up there for some reasons, and of course Dallas. We get that.
Dallas is always there.
It's unbelievable,
even if they are 4-5 or 3-7.
With who's the quarterback now? Cooper Rush.
Cooper.
I'll say right now, I bet Dak does not play again this year.
How about Trey Lance? Maybe. Yeah, let's get him in there.
Wow, I forgot that.
That would be crazy if you saw him.
Yeah, look for the future if you're a team with a young quarterback.
Who could that be?
We'll transition there, but no, it wasn't a surprise.
No. This was also the trade deadline here in
also
the NFL.
Not a surprise.
Also not a surprise
from this team.
Exactly. That nothing happens, and in spite of the Colts making one move, you know, to bench Anthony Richardson and promote Joe Flacco to the starter,
because you thought now you had
we have a team. Like,
right.
We want to make a push for the playoffs. Like, that's what they're saying, at least, is the reason behind the entire move. And I'm not going to go head first into conspiracy theories. That's a waste of our time. And I genuinely believe I believe it's Occam's razor that the simplest explanation is usually the best one. Thank you, chap. And that's what I believe the Colts believe to be true. That they think that they have a playoff team, and they thought Joe Flacco was They thought they had a playoff team, and they thought Joe Flacco was the best opportunity. Yeah, that's a good question, chap. That's why we discuss this every week here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. I think if you listen to the plurality of our discussion, you will find out the answer to that question. But nevertheless, they made one move, like I said, to promote Joe Flacco to the starting quarterback, and then they made no more moves. They believe, because allegedly they believe that this is a playoff team as it is, and Chris Ballard, as you well know, is very adverse to giving up assets in order to just do a temporary fix or whatever.
He said one pre-deadline trade.
That's it.
Naheem Hines,
and that's
I believe,
who wanted out.
Who asked?
He very much went to him and was like, you know what?
And they got Zach Moss.
They did get Zach Moss, who turned out pretty well.
Right.
Yeah. Naheem Hines has unfortunately gone through a rash of injuries and horrific accidents since then, but he was certainly a player here during his time. Anyway, some moves across the league. There weren't any earth-shattering ones, but the Commanders did get quarterback Marshawn Lattimore, which was a big need for them. Off to a 7-2 start, your Washington Commanders under Jaden Daniels, and an offense that is certainly attuned to his liking as a rookie quarterback and reigning Heisman Trophy winner. But they needed some defensive help. They got some help by adding Marshawn Lattimore. Wide receiver Mike Williams was not latching on to the Jets at all. They trade him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who could use a little help.
They've been looking for a receiver all season.
Yes, they have. And Pickens, while he certainly shows flashes of brilliance from time to time, they need more consistency. And I don't know if Mike Williams is the correct answer for that, but nevertheless, he's a talent.
Maybe I'm getting my teams mixed up. I thought Pittsburgh had a deal done for Christian Kirk.
Let me see this.
Of the Jaguars. And then he broke his collarbone. Some team did.
Okay. I was going to say, it's not on this list, obviously.
But they didn't get it done because Kirk broke his collarbone, and then they had to go to plan B.
Yep. Of course, so there's some the Panthers traded Deontay Johnson, wide receiver, to the Ravens. That was last week. Cam Robinson went to the Vikings last week. Cam Akers went to the Vikings last week. I know those things because the Colts just played the Vikings.
And they played, and they started.
Yeah, exactly.
Robinson started.
Certainly did. Played the entire stinking game over there. Amari Cooper went to the Bills, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, from the Browns, which was a little bit earlier. Devontae Adams to the Jets a little bit earlier as well. Big one for the Lions, acquiring Zadarius Smith from the Browns after Aiden Hutchinson goes down with injury, who was playing at an all-world MVP, defensive MVP caliber level. They need to shore up their pass rush, and they did with Zadarius Smith. That's a team that I think if Chris Ballard was GM of that team and you lose a player like that, that's the type of move that he would make. You know, like it's not. I think the Colts fans are eager for moves sometimes, and I understand why. You want moves for the sake of moves. That's not what usually a general manager wants to do in the NFL. So,
well, and again, because it would be, if anything, they might have been, from the outside looking in, they might have been a team trying to sell players.
Yeah,
to get rid of players. But then they believe, and take them at their word, that they've got a chance to make the playoffs, and maybe in December we'll be thinking, hey, I can't believe they win 2 more games and look where they are. But where they were and what's ahead of them, and the way they made this strange quarterback change that we beat to death last week, it just boggles the mind what they're trying to do.
The Rams traded cornerback Tre'Davious White to the Ravens. That's probably the last biggest name here on the list. Steelers also acquired defensive end Preston Smith from the Packers. There are a couple others here and there that I'm looking at this list on, what is this, usatoday.com, so we'll give them credit for it, that I'm kind of just rattling off here and there. But, I'm sure that the Colts got some calls about Anthony Richardson because they just benched him, but obviously he still stays here, and that is not a move that Chris Ballard is seriously considering at this point right now.
Who knows how many teams called, but teams did call, and I was told from inside the team that they were politely told, no way. And there's a lot of phrases you can use with that, but no, they're not. Whatever you believe, what they're trying to get done now, believe that Richardson is part of the future. Now, how they navigate that, I don't know. And it's obvious that Shane Steichen is tired of talking about this situation. You know, like Wednesday, it was, well, whatever Richardson wasn't doing, what's he doing now? How are things different now? And I think he mentioned, well, I met with him today or checked in with him today. Is that normal? I don't know. And Richardson wanted nothing to do.
No, he doesn't.
At all. I mean, we talked to him yesterday, which is a little odd because you don't talk to backup quarterbacks. You just don't unless they're Matt Hasselbeck, and he's the best voice in the locker room. But it's all about, because we're getting no answers, is what are you doing now that you weren't doing then? How have you improved? How have you adjusted? We're not getting that, and we won't get that.
Yeah.
But I do believe that they view him as a quarterback to be in the future mix, which is different from being your quarterback of the future. It's just going to be difficult, and we'll see. It's going to be more difficult the longer they go with Flacco if they don't start winning. I think this week with Buffalo is a much more conducive setting to success than Minnesota was. Minnesota, they've got a good defense that really mucks things up for you. But, you know, we were talking in the press room. How long, let's say Flacco goes out there and just can't get it done the first half, and it's still winnable. you're down 13-7, whatever. How soon do you go to Richardson? And then if you do, are you replacing your starter for a half and then you go back to your starter? So they've just created, things that they don't want to talk about, but this is what they've done. And, we talked last week, the worst thing is to go into next season not knowing what you've got.
Right.
And right now you don't know what you've got. But Flacco, he can't keep playing like he did last week because that's simply not good enough.
Yeah, let's get into last week then a little bit. I know Matt delivers things on a weekly basis too, but Chap and I are going to share our thoughts. The Colts fall to the Vikings on Sunday Night Football, 21-13. Once again, a single-score game. Mike Chappell, 8 points. That's one score.
11 in a row.
Yep. Boom, 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 boom.
Congratulations.
Boom. Yeah, good job, guys. Well done.
You're good enough to compete and good enough to lose.
All 9 of them this year so far, including 2 losses in a row. They had a 7-0 halftime lead off the defensive touchdown. The offense scored 6 points, Chap.
Matt Gay scored 6 points.
That's right. Matt Gay scored 6 points, which was the lowest offensive output of the season. They had 13 first downs, their fewest number of the season. 0 drives into the red zone. Never crossed the 20-yard line.
That's hard to do.
That is hard to do. That is obviously their fewest of the season.
I detect a trend here.
227 yards on offense. Their fewest of the season.
Second fewest of Steichen since he's been here.
And negative 0.35, if we want to go deep into the stats here, the EPA, expected points added per play, which was their lowest of the season, negative 0.35. And I looked at, just to give you a little context for those of you who aren't total football nerds, the range right now is, for the entire season, the best team in the NFL is positive 0.23 expected points added, and the lowest team in the NFL is negative 0.23 expected points added. So a number that's negative 0.35 is obviously not a good number. It is worse than the worst average in the NFL. Just basically shows that your offense is not being efficient, and your offense is not doing anything that could potentially add points to your total.
And yet, 5 minutes to play is 14-10,
Yep.
and you've got a 3rd and 2 at Minnesota's 40.
Yep.
So, you can erase all that 3.5 quarters of not good football with 5 minutes or with 3 minutes of getting something done, and they didn't do it.
Of respectable football on the other side of the
Right.
thing. It doesn't even have to be electric football.
Right.
It needs to be respectable football. And at that point, it simply wasn't. Jonathan Taylor had 48 rushing yards, which tied his lowest output of the season, 13 carries. To be fair, Vikings had one of the best rush defenses in the NFL.
Second or third in the league, I believe it was.
As we talked about last week, leading in, thinking that could be a really tough game for the Colts to get going with Jonathan Taylor on the ground, and it certainly was. The Vikings, however, they're 36, nearly 37 minutes time in possession, their most of the season. 71 plays on offense, their most of the season. 415 offensive yards, their most on the season. 29 first downs, their most
Another trend
on the season.
We were talking in the press room today. It was a quiet day. And I remember in college as a senior, I took debate, and the prof gave you a topic. Whether you believed in it or not, you had to argue for it.
Right.
If I had to argue in favor of this defense, it would be hard because 400 yards, 25, time of possession and third downs, yet they're keeping the points down. As of all, what they had 3 takeaways and 4 sacks. They did, which is what you want from a defense. Most games with 5 minutes to play, if you've kept a team to those numbers, the points and all that, you should win. You just should win. So but the defense is one of the reasons that the time of possession is so out of whack, because they're not getting off the field 400 yards every week. But this is whether this team succeeds or not. In the end, whatever you want to classify succeed is, it's going to be on the offense. You cannot continue to lean on a defense that at some point is going to wear down, because you're on the field for, 70-some plays. That's just unsustainable. There's that word.
Unsustainable.
It's always there.
This year it is.
So, yeah, it was a strange game. But like I said, they were there. They were there. I'm thinking if you told Shane Steichen on Saturday, listen, you're going to trail 14-10 with 5 minutes to play, you're at the 40-yard line, and you're 3rd and 2, he would have taken it.
Oh, yeah.
Without even batting an eye.
Mm-hmm.
But they just, too many times, they just haven't been able to finish because of execution, whatever. Bad throws, not making a catch, whatever.
That would be an interesting debate, going and defending the Colts defense. And I think a big part of that would be pointing at the Colts offense, not being able to stay on the field as well at the same time. Like it's week after week, Chap, that the Colts opponent has its highest output of time of possession on the year.
The Colts are still last in time of possession.
Dead
is it 20? Is it 25, 26? I don't know what it is.
Let me look right now. The Colts, because that's down further here, it's 25 minutes and 41 seconds of time of possession per game on average.
Normally it's like 31-29, 32-28 in extreme cases. Mm-hmm. This is every week is like this.
Mm-hmm. And it's very consistent. I'll give them that. The Colts have played consistent throughout the year, that their opponent gets a whole lot of time possession and they do not. But that's probably not a good thing to be consistent at, to be fair to them. They were also 3 of 11 on third down. Found it difficult to convert there. The good thing, they played 57 minutes without allowing a sack until Jonathan Grenard got there in the fourth quarter to get that first sack.
Once they knew they were in pass mode, it was pin your ears back and don't worry about anything else.
And that's what happens when you have a rookie left tackle, and that's the defense that you're facing at that point. So I would say not giving up a sack to this defense over 57 minutes was a really, really good showing.
With an immobile quarterback.
Yes, exactly. That too, especially. But nevertheless, if you're just not gaining first downs and not staying on the field and putting your defense out there over and over again until it gets worn down in the third and fourth quarter, which is what happened, then that's still not a sustainable plan and not a thing that will lead to success, even if the offensive line is not allowing a sack. This is a loss also, Chap, that could have been worse because the Vikings did miss 2 field goals.
Right.
So that you have that as well.
That's what it's just so strange. But having said all that, they were right there.
They were right there.
And we all thought or expected that one of the reasons behind changing quarterbacks is you're going to a quarterback who's going to be better on third down, who's going to make the easier throws.
He can complete to Josh Downs on 3rd and 5 for 7 yards.
But he was 16 for 27, 100 and whatever it was,
75
yards,
like
and
that.
You just can't do it, especially when you're not running the ball effectively because they won't let you. So it's just very curious. We talked to Michael Pittman yesterday, and he's gotten to be my favorite because he just says what's on his mind. And he was pointing out, remember the 4th and 2 went to Ashton Doolin.
It did.
Covered it, really not much of a chance. And that probably would have been to Pittman, but he was on the sideline because he dislocated his finger. He said it was at right angles to his pinky. So he said, he told the guys, hey, can you fix this? And they said, yeah, and they popped it back in place, and he's out there for the last drive.
That's a reasonable excuse to step out for a play.
Right, that's to tap out or
yes,
step out?
Well, whatever it is.
Okay,
we'll go with step out, which is what he did.
So, but he was asked about how do you get this offense going, and he said we need consistency. He said we've got to get our short game going. He said right now we have a shot mentality, which is they've had that all year. And Steichen believes in explosive plays. He does, and I understand that. But we've said all along, if you're not converting on third down, and you're converting a couple of 60-yarders or whatever, that's fine. But until you get the short game going, this isn't going to work. So that's why, again, I think that with Flacco, the idea is that he will be better in those. The problem is Michael Pittman is not. I don't know, what's he, 70%? I don't know, because of the back injury. And he's in the midst of his worst season, is in the midst of his worst 5-game stretch of his career because of the back.
Right.
So everything's kind of conspiring against him. But you've got to get Jonathan Downs more involved. You've got to get Pierce more involved underneath it and somehow get Mitchell going, which we're halfway through and I really haven't seen it yet.
You need something. As Pittman said, I think consistency is the thing. You need to find someone somewhere. And I thought Downs would be the guy, but Downs certainly wasn't it last week. And I don't know if that's to his fault or to Flacco's fault. I can't give that analysis. Just can't do it because I wasn't there. I'm not watching from above, and I'm just watching on TV like the rest of you. So I can't offer any more insight into that. But nevertheless, like you have some options for there. And Pittman's a tough option because, like you said, he's hurt. Like Downs is the guy who clicked with Flacco before. Tight ends, well, you've been looking for somebody all year, and yet
after 9 games, it's what's it? They are who we thought they are, who we didn't think they would be.
Yeah,
because we all thought this was a good room, and it just hasn't been.
Yeah, very, very much underperformers is that group
in
for
the
this
passing
year.
game. Protection-wise, it's hard to tell. They're using a lot of protection with 2 tight ends last week to help protect the rookie at left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But, boy, you've got to have something from in the pass game from your tight ends.
And if you're using that type of an offense that is protecting so much with the tight ends, like that allows the ability for tight ends to slip out for one catch for 25 yards, in an important time on a 3rd and 2 or a 4th and 2 there late in the game, when you've been blocking the entire game. But the Colts aren't even getting that from their tight ends. The surprise play where somebody leaks out, the tight end leak.
We see that with Mo or somebody or Granton occasionally, but not very little of that.
Right, and we didn't see it in Minnesota. Is my point there? So it was. I think it was a frustrating game and to watch if you're a Colts fan, and certainly if you're in the Colts locker room, that they made the change. They're going in with some confidence in the new quarterback, maybe a little bit of momentum that way. If you're trying to build from inside the locker room, get behind the elite Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl winning quarterback. Focus on the playoffs. You're not worried about building for the future at all. Like, this is all about this year. Hoorah, here we go. And then splat. You run into the Vikings, who played really well, to be fair. And this was their first win in 3 weeks. They played a good game. They left the door open for the Colts to have a shot there at the end, but also closed the game well in the face of giving them that shot. So the Vikings improve to 6-2, I believe it is. The Colts fall to 4-5. Two teams going in opposite directions in their divisions right now, as the Vikings need to keep up with the Lions and the Packers, who still are playing fairly well themselves, if they want to have any sense in a division race at the end of the year. And another part about what made that game disappointing, Chap, was the fact that the Texans had lost earlier in the week on Thursday Night Football. They are having issues themselves protecting C.J. Stroud. Wow. Major issues. He's getting pummeled. Yeah.
Somebody mentioned that they've given up I think it was the interior. They've given up 139 pressures this year. He's under siege. And that's one thing this, knock on wood, that this team has not had, where it's just been an all-out jailbreak, game long. And it's one of the reasons that C.J. Stroud's having the troubles he is. If you can't protect your quarterback, you can't play. I mean, this is football 101. So the Colts haven't had that. Again, I thought last week against the Vikings, the pass protection was pretty darn good until everyone knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, the problem is the Colts can't keep saying, well, Houston lost. Okay, fine, so did you.
Well, you've got to win.
Right, because keep in mind, people keep saying, well, the AFC South's in play. Well, sort of. But now you're 3 down with, it's like match play golf. You're 3 down with 8 to play. At some point, you're running out of holes. Mm-hmm. So the thing to really, to me, shoot for is that 7th wild card. I think they're a game back.
I believe so.
I think they're 8th behind the Chargers, I believe. So that, to me, that's very, very attainable, because surprisingly, the AFC South, the middle on down is really muddled because of injuries, and Miami with injuries, and Cincinnati because they had the slow start. Tonight's a monster game. And if you don't know who to pull for, I'd say pull for Baltimore, because you want to get Cincinnati with losses, because they're going to be there for that 7th spot.
Yep.
If they've got maybe the 2nd best quarterback in the league right now.
Yep.
And they're on the upswing, so tonight would be a good time for them to hit a wall.
Yeah, these 2 quarterbacks playing tonight are 2 of the top 4 in the league right now, with the Ravens and the Bengals for sure, and the other 2 are probably playing for the Chiefs and the Bills right now.
I say the Colts will see one of them Sunday.
Yeah, and that. They've played Josh Allen well, to be fair to them. So I'll give the Colts credit there.
The playoff game, what's that in 2020?
In 20.
With Phillip Rivers, it was the end of the half, he made 2 or 3 of the most incredible plays with Gabe Davis on the sideline.
Yep.
That you just don't make. He makes plays that you just don't make because he's that good. He extends plays, but it's amazing.
Yep. The Colts and the Bengals right now are both 4-5 and 1 game out of the
Colts have the conference tiebreak.
They do. The Broncos right now are the 7th seed in the AFC, and they're 5-4, so they're one game up. They play Kansas City this week.
And then the Colts go there in a few weeks.
And then the Colts go to Denver, which will be a massive game for them in a few weeks.
That's after the bye, I believe.
Yes, it is. The Chargers, who are in 6th right now in the AFC, play the Titans, so they would want to win that game. The Texans play the Lions, so there you go. That might be a tough game for the Texans up there. Steelers play the Commanders, tough game for them, and that's the
Who's
AFC
below
play.
the Colts?
The Bengals are tied, and then the Jets, and then beneath them the Titans. So Jets are 3-6.
So you've got the Jets coming up. You got the Broncos coming up. You've got people.
You still play the Titans,
right?
So there's teams that you play that are right around you. Yeah, the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't consider
the
the
Bills
Titans
way
in
up
the mix,
there.
but no, I see what you mean.
Yeah, the Jets, the Titans. You beat the Dolphins already. The Jaguars are way down there. So
that is attainable. That's realistic.
It's not unattainable. Yes.
I thought I saw one.
Well.
I saw on one side that Colts had like a 30% chance of making the playoffs. To me, that sounds high. Just because of how they're playing and who they play. But that's why I say that the wild card is so much more realistic than the division.
Right. According to NFL.com right here, the Colts currently have a 31% chance of making the playoffs.
Does it feel like that to you? Maybe I'm wrong.
Like 1/3, I don't think that's ridiculous. I might think more like a quarter, like 25. But that's kind of splitting hairs, I think.
But a lot of that's because the teams down around 5, 6, 7, 8, they're just sort of muddling around. And right.
If they lose this week, that drops to a 22% chance.
That's still pretty doggone high.
If they win, it jumps to a 46% chance. So then it becomes almost a coin flip there if you are able to beat the Bills.
If they can win 2 of the next 3 with this one and the Jets, the Jets, who knows what you're getting with the Jets.
Right.
You need 2 of the 3. 1 of 3 is tough.
You're just throwing the Lions out immediately. Just like forget that.
Oh my goodness! We'll talk about that one. I want to see what the point spread is there. But the Lions are legit.
They are.
But after that, doggone it, the schedule eases up. We'll get to it later, but I think this game is winnable. I think Buffalo is very, very good, but I think they may be poised for that trap game. They've got a big game coming up. But you got to play better than you did at Minnesota. You have to.
Practice report for the Colts. 2 players are listed as did not participate in Wednesday's practice. Those would be linebacker Zaire Franklin with an ankle injury and wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr., as has become his custom on Wednesdays to sit out with a back injury, and also listed as a finger injury there because, he popped it back in and got back in the game, but you still need to list it on the old injury report there the next week. Full participant in practice. A couple other players listed. Matt Gonzalez with a shoulder and finger. Dio Odangbo, elbow injury. Bernard Ryman with a concussion was a full participant in that practice. So did Shane Steichen? Well, you didn't hear from Shane Steichen, so there was some confusion on Ryman.
There was, because he came out, coach did, and said
he's through the protocol.
He's cleared protocol and he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, then as it turned out, what he meant was he's cleared protocol to the phase that he can practice.
Right.
That's 2 different things.
It is.
But what was encouraging, Ryman was in a blue jersey yesterday, not in a red jersey.
Right.
So he had cleared the red jersey stage, which means no contact.
Correct.
And then if he comes out of today, if he came out of yesterday okay, then the last step is the independent neurologist.
Right. And you don't need the independent neurologist until the weekend. You don't need to have it right now. He can still keep practicing in full as long as he doesn't experience more symptoms and then take a step back. So there's a chance that the Colts haven't even tried to clear him yet, and they won't do that until either tomorrow or Saturday, whatever.
Right.
But they could do it right now if they were 100% confident he's fine. If he's 100% confident he's fine. So there's no dire need to get that done immediately. As we sit right here.
And just an update from Joel Erickson on practice. He doesn't see Pittman out there today. I wrote about Pitt today, and he's been practicing like once a week. I'm guessing he practices tomorrow. Zaire Franklin was back practicing. It's just such a they put that out there for a reason, and we follow it for a reason. But until we get to Friday, I just don't put a lot of merit in what's going on. Braden Smith's going to practice once a week, maybe twice a week. And that's where they are. And then we've got Ryan Kelly out for 4 weeks with a knee. He's been bothered by the knee and the calf, and the idea is he comes back after 4 games. But if this thing continues to spiral, then why? Other than it's your job and you want to do that, but that's why I say, like with Pitt, he's fighting through things. If this thing goes really south, do you consider putting him on IR? Because you're not going anywhere, and he's just not. He's giving you what he can, but it's not enough. So, but we'll see where all this goes.
Braden Smith, also a full participant in Wednesday's practice. He had still nursing that knee injury that he's had all season.
That's that. I mean, you wondered, does it just take? We never knew exactly what the surgery was. They're very, very quiet on that, and that's how teams are. So, is this what they expected as far as rehab, or has he had a setback as far as whatever, and this is where he's at? But he went through this last year where he wasn't what they needed him to be because he couldn't be because of the knee, and there were times in the locker room he was distraught.
Yep.
I mean distraught.
Yep.
Because of how he played. It was a legitimate reason for how he was playing. So I say when people judge or whatever these players, keep in mind that they're going through stuff. I mean, stuff every game. But again, until we see the Friday injury report, it doesn't mean a lot to me.
Yeah, if you're a fan and you're frustrated with with Braden Smith's play, I'm sure he's more frustrated than you, number one. And B, he's better than anyone else they have out there. And C, he's playing through an injury that is a rough injury. And I know, like, if you're out there, then every player will tell you there's no excuse.
Pitt said, if I'm out there, I'm out there.
Yeah, and same thing for Braden and anybody else. But, like, if you're frustrated, I get it. If you're angry, then I wouldn't get it. Because he's in a position where he is... Like, he's a guy he earned what, a $19 million contract, I think, a year or something like that. Like, he's a very good right tackle, and he's just having to fight through injuries right now. And he's playing as best as he can. I'm not here, like I've said many times, I'm not here to carry the Colts water, but I am here to tell you exactly what's going on. And I will never make excuses for anybody that is just for the sake of making excuses. You guys have listened to me long enough to know that. But
have perspective on when you're criticizing players is at least like with Pitt. A lot of players wouldn't be going through this. Remember, He got the big contract.
Yep.
So he could say, "Yeah, I'm looking long term and all that." But these guys, by and large, will do whatever it takes to play.
The Bills practice report, only one player did not participate in Wednesday's practice. That was wide receiver, their rookie first-rounder, Keon Coleman, with a wrist injury. Limited in participation, wide receiver Amari Cooper, also with a wrist injury. Another wide receiver, Curtis Samuel, with a pectoral injury. So a lot of wide receivers there lining up on the Bills practice report. Also, cornerback Kyer Elam with a shoulder injury, fullback Reggie Gillum with a hip. And then there was a slew of guys who were full participant in practice, listed with various injuries. I didn't list any of them here on the page because literally there was like 10 or 15 of them. I was like, I'm not wasting time with that. We got too many other things to talk about. One thing that head coach Sean McDermott did add was that defensive end Dwayne Smoot is going to go on injured reserve with a wrist injury as well. So they're going to miss out on him on their defensive line for the immediate future for at least the next 4 games after he sustained that injury in last week's game. So let's take a look at some of those rankings for the teams this year. The Bills and the Colts, you might be surprised with how average the Bills are in many of these categories, Chap, in spite of being 7-2 on the season and first place in the AFC South. The Colts, of course, are 22nd in total offense, averaging 315 yards per game. The Bills are averaging 20 yards more per game, 335. That is 15th.
Smack in the middle.
In the NFL, right smack dab in the middle. Rush offense, Colts are 16th in the NFL, 121 yards per game. The Bills, 17th.
Smack in the middle.
119.1 yards per game. Pass offense, Colts are 22nd, 193.7 yards per game. Bills, 16th. Smack in the middle, once again.
216 yards a game with Josh Allen.
Yards a game.
I mean, really? That's all you got?
Like, I was looking, and like the number one team isn't even above 300 yards per game.
This is a season of an anomaly. It is.
Yes, it is. It is a regression to the mean, perhaps the long-term mean, that for years and years and years has been going up and up and up, And now finally defensive coordinators are finally like, none of this. Too high safety. You're not throwing against us.
See how patient you can be.
Yep. And on scoring offense, however, the Colts 22nd. So they're 22nd in total offense, passing offense, and scoring offense. Colts at 20.9 yards per game. The Bills, in spite of their average yardage per game, are all the way up in 4th in points per game. They are scoring 28.9 points per game. Total defense, Colts are 29th, 383 yards per game. Bills, 17th, smack in the middle, 333.3 yards per game. Rush defense, Colts still 31st, averaging nearly 150 yards given up per game. The Bills, 15th in the league in rush defense, 123 yards per game, smack in the middle. Pass defense, the Colts are 26th in the NFL, 233.3 yards per game. Bills, 16th in the NFL.
It's amazing.
209.9 yards given up per game. Scoring defense, Colts are 12th in the league, 21.4 yards per points per game. They are a bend but don't break defense. Bills up at 8th in points per game.
4th in offense, 8th in defense.
Yep.
With an average, with everything else being very average.
That's pretty good if you're in the top 10 in both offense and defense. 19.2 points the Bills are giving up per game.
One of the reasons that they're scoring and all this is your next stat.
Aha, Chap looking ahead on the rundown.
Occasionally I do.
In turnover margin, the Indianapolis Colts are +1 on the year. They are tied for 13th in the league. The Buffalo Bills are +11. That is the most in the NFL this year in 9 games. So they're averaging more than +1 per game, which is a really, really good number. And they're doing it very well in both takeaways and turnovers.
Which is the way you'd want to have your plus.
Exactly. That's how you get to the top of this list.
Right.
They have 15 takeaways in their 9 games this year. That is 4th most in the NFL. And they only have committed 4 turnovers in their 9 games. So they're basically averaging less than half a turnover per game. And that is 2nd in the NFL.
And this is with a quarterback that last year might have led the league in turnovers.
You know what?
Josh Allen.
This is a quarterback that came into the NFL not being able to hit the broadside of a barn with the ball and turning the ball over at an alarming rate. And the Buffalo Bills decided to stick with it.
I know where you're going with this. I thought we talked about this last week.
And in his third full season in the NFL, that is when things clicked. That is when everything came together. That's also when they had signed Stephon Diggs, who at the time was good friends with Josh Allen and the rest of the Buffalo Bills, at least. And then Josh Allen has been tremendous ever since that
top 5 quarterback.
That 2000 year, I believe it was, like the 2020 year rather, when they met the Colts there in the postseason. Because I think his rookie year was 2018. And then 2019 was year 2, and then 2020 would have been year 3. So yeah, that's kind of the tale of the tape between these two teams. Also, time of possession. The Bills are in the bottom half of the NFL actually in time of possession, only averaging 29 minutes per game, 29 minutes, 24 seconds. The Colts, of course, dead last in the NFL with the 25-41 I mentioned earlier. But I'm sure the Bills are due for a season best this weekend. Excuse me. Hello, as they get set to take on the Colts. And you look at those numbers, Chap, and it is remarkable how a team that is average in everything, that is elite in one thing, taking the ball away and holding on to the ball, can be so solidly 7-2 on the season, very much in control of their division, very much in line for a playoff spot. You don't have to be world beaters. You just have to be don't beat yourselfers, it seems like.
How many times do you hear, Steichen and Tony Dungy, more games are lost than won with turnovers. And, except for the final score or the score, the biggest gauge of winning and losing is turnovers. It just is. And the Colts have been okay, I guess. I mean, Richardson had 9, which is just you can't do that in 6 games. But when I remember back in those years that the Bills were the 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Yep,
they were so many times very average defensively, maybe even below average. I remember 26th, 27th, but they were like 3rd or 4th in fewest points allowed. They keep score. That's how it's funny that they rank offenses and defenses by yards allowed when points is what it's about, and points are almost secondary when people talk about, oh, they're giving up this many yards rushing and total, and then, like I say, we've got one where their offense and their defense is scoring and not letting people score. Mm-hmm. I think the Bills have the biggest point differential in the league.
Yep.
Maybe by a decent margin. So, again, this is a team that they lull you to sleep by average stuff until Josh Allen does some absolutely ridiculous things. That's what I'm saying. He's thrown for 2,000 yards. I think it's 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions by Josh Allen, for crying out loud. So it's in the fewest sacks. It's all that. So when you get to this, the ranking high in fewest turnovers, ranking high in fewest sacks, that's not beating yourself.
Right. And the Bills also have 2 players on the edge, A.J. Epinesa and Greg Rousseau, who both have more than 4 sacks themselves. They have, what was it? I was just looking at their stats. I think it was 5 players, 6 players with at least 1 interception.
The Vikings had 8.
Exactly. They were even more.
Right.
Exactly. But still 6 players with an interception, also pretty darn good. So, yeah, you look at their offense, you look at their numbers, and, like, nothing really jumps off the page too much at you. James Cook's a pretty good running back. Like, he's averaging 4.6 yards per carry, has 7 touchdowns on the year. And, of course, Josh Allen's numbers are 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. That's a pretty good ratio. I mean, that's even better than other ratios we talk about frequently here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. So that's winning quarterback play.
I wonder. It's just crazy that this transition to being taking care of the football. It comes when they get rid of Stephon Diggs. They made a concerted effort or commitment to change the receiver room.
They did.
Because Gabe Davis was I think he was a free agent.
He was, yes.
So and then they're still functional, above functional.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that the Stephon Diggs thing sort of ran its course,
mm-hmm.
which you can't have. You just can't have that. And they're better. Number wise, they're not better, but I mean, as far as yards and all that, but efficiency, they're just better.
They knew what they had, I think, in Khalil Shakir, who's been rising the past couple years as very much a Josh Downs type of player. He's a good possession receiver. He's averaging 11 yards per catch. He's long as 52, so he can still take it for a big gain if he gets the opportunity, like Downs can. But he has 42 catches on the year, so he's averaging almost 5 catches per game. I mean, they have a tight end in Dalton Kincaid who's incredibly reliable, 10 yards per catch. Tight ends
hurt these guys.
Yep. Yes, they do. 32 catches on the year. Their rookie, Keon Coleman, has been kind of the big play guy. He's averaging 19 yards per catch with his 22 catches on the year, has 417 yards.
I've seen somewhere he's had some issues with drops.
Yes, that is true.
But I guess you live with that as a young player.
If he's averaging 19 yards per catch, then you live with that, and you just don't throw it to him all the dang time, which they're not. Like, he's not the focal point of their offense. He's the big play guy. And again, like it goes back to our discussion we were having with the Colts and Shane Steichen's affinity for the big play. Like, you can have that, and if it fails once in a while, and you still have Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir who can convert on 3rd and 6, then fantastic. Go for it. And then if you make a couple drops as a rookie there, then fine. You'll live with that. But if you don't have any reliable way to gain a first down on either 2nd and 10 because you took the shot on 1st, or on 3rd and 4 because you took the shot after a 6-yard run, on first down.
You better have the short game to convert 3rd and 4.
You have to, and that's exactly what Michael Pittman was talking about in the locker room. Just says we've got to get the short game going. So there's nothing sexy about what's wrong with the Colts, chap. There's things. It's hard. It's the grind of being a good football team, is moving the chains. And it's what they haven't done all year. It's why they're dead last in the NFL in time of possession. It's why they have failed in multiple games late in the game, because the defense is just freaking tired by the end of it, that they can't stand up to whatever offense is there anymore. I don't care if you're looking across the field at Josh Allen or if you're looking across the field at Sam Darnold, who's having a fair year, to be fair, but is not the same type of player that Josh Allen is. Like, you're going up against quality NFL teams. If you give them, like I said earlier, 71 plays for the Vikings last week, they're most of the entire season, then they're going to get something after a while when you just give them that many opportunities. And the Colts are not doing that. That's the problem. They are not living up to what they should be doing. They're not living up to expectations on offense and staying on the field and just making it hard for the opposing offense, like making it easier, giving their defense a breather. I think it can be incredibly frustrating for the Colts defense to be going out, even though, as I said, the Vikings had a lot of really good offensive numbers. I think that the defense could be more frustrated by what the Colts offense is not doing when over the past couple weeks, the defense hasn't been the problem, in my eyes.
Well, and the first drive against the Vikings, I think there was a decent completion to Granson, and then JT had a couple of good runs, and then JT gets loose again, and he fumbles on just a handoff.
Yep.
They have got to find a way to get their running game going with Joe Flacco.
Need it.
With Joe, I believe their three worst games rushing this year have been with Flacco as a starting quarterback. Well, duh, because you don't have Richardson, and that's one of those puzzling things that they have to deal with. Is I've said 44% from Richardson. You can't win in today's NFL with that. Can't do it. But he also is your second leading rusher, and he so much more magnifies Taylor's threat when he's out there. When Flacco's out there, he is zero threat in the run game. Zero. It's back to the just the days where you got the Peyton Manning days, I guess, to where it is one dimensional in the run game. It's going to be Edgerrin or Dominic Rhodes or Joe Adai, but they decided that the negatives of Richardson outweighed the positives he brought as a runner. So and I think Richardson's got one rushing touchdown this year. Well, when you have 0 snaps in the red zone, you're not going to have your quarterback rush for a touchdown. So it's really it's such a bad mix of possibilities for the Colts right now. But one of them that they have got to get going is Taylor has got to have more than 48 yards, but he's got to have more than 13 carries. He just does. Because if he's 13 for 48, okay, give him 5 more carries. Maybe one of those he breaks the 30-yarder, the 40-yarder, because that's what he does. That's what great backs do. They're just not giving their skill players enough opportunities because those skill players aren't being used to move the change.
That's certainly what Taylor did in Buffalo in 2021 when he had the 5 touchdown game.
Was it 185?
I believe it was. It was one of the best performances I've ever seen in person by a single player at any position. Doesn't matter.
And the Bills were good, as I remember.
They had one of the best rushing defenses, I thought, in the league that year. And the Colts just ran all over them.
Was it 45 to whatever it was?
I don't remember the final score, but I remember it was dominant. And I remember Jim Irsay meeting with Taylor, outside the locker room and just giving him a few pats on the shoulders and talking to him here and there. And then, of course, juxtaposed with last year. I remember that we were going through all that, too. But we don't need to get into all that. Forget that. That was just just pick that
a rabbit hole we're not going to go down.
No. We certainly do not need to go down it at all. But Taylor should have some good vibes going into this game because he should have some confidence going against this Buffalo defense. And the Colts thrashed them that year in 2021. And the Colts came very close to beating them in 2020, the year before, if not for a missed field goal here or there by a certain former kicker as well. Would have given them a much better opportunity to win that game and stay alive in the playoffs. But it was not meant to be. But like you said, Taylor's got to get going better with Joe Flacco as the quarterback because now the running game relies on him. It's not
two rookie offensive linemen.
Yeah, that's not.
It's not ideal.
Not ideal either.
I think they miss Will Fries.
Oh, I'm sure they miss Will Fries.
So much. I mean, that's not any shade on Dalton Tucker. But Will Fries was playing pretty well.
The Colts host the Buffalo Bills. It will be at Lucas Oil Stadium, so that's nice to get back home. Feel a little bit better there. 1 o'clock kickoff, broadcast if you're in Central Indiana on CBS 4. Now, I've seen a couple of different lines, and it's either 4.5 or 4 right now. I think it's trending to 4 everywhere. is what the number might be come kickoff. But I wrote down here 4.5 because that's what it was on FanDuel yesterday. I think I've seen a couple more places go to 4 points. Bills favored, of course, for this game. The over-under at 46.5. I think if that's what some people might call a smelly fish, the Bills being a 7-2 team and only 4-point favorites, and the line shrinking also going toward kickoff. That's and for those of you who are not degenerate gamblers, the smelly fish.
I used to be, but no longer.
There you go. Congratulations. You made it out the other side.
Yes.
The smelly fish is a line that looks very enticing. That you're like, why are the Bills only 4-point favorites against the Colts? The Colts have lost 2 in a row. The Bills are 7-2. They're playing great football. The Colts can't stop anybody on defense. Well, the Colts can't stop people. The Colts just can't stop points on defense. Eventually, they give up field goal attempts, and they can't get off the field on defense, and the offense can't stay on. Like, why are they only 4-point favorites? And there are usually reasons for that, Mike Chappell, as we've said. There are reasons that the new casinos are built in Vegas.
They're not tearing them down. When they tear them down, they're tearing them down to make room for another one.
Exactly, or build 2 more.
Right.
You know, and there's a reason the ones that are there are plated with gold on the ceilings. So that number is a fishy number, and that's why as we begin to make our predictions, I'll go first and then you can go second. I'm not picking the Colts, but I am picking a close game. I can't bring myself to take them over Josh Allen, although I would not be surprised if they do win this game outright. It's not like I'll just leave it at that. But I'm gonna take the Bills 27-24. The offense does find a little bit of something in this game, and hopefully they can build on that into the future because they like we said, they need to get Jonathan Taylor going. And they need to develop some consistency there. And hopefully this is a game that, I mean, I wouldn't call it a get-right game because you're going to lose, but this is a game that I think can set the table for how you win down the stretch of this season by playing one of the best teams in the AFC pretty darn close. So I've got the Bills 27-24. What do you think?
I've got 30-24, Buffalo. And again, I think this is a game the Colts can win. I won't be shocked if they do win. We talk about trap games, and maybe we're making more out of that than we should. Last week, Buffalo, with a 61-yard field goal, beats Miami.
Yeah.
Division. They basically locked up the division. And next week, they've got Kansas City. So I would understand if human nature plays a role and Buffalo's not quite where they need to be. And I truly, truly expect Flacco to play better, more efficient. He was just all over the place last week. I was surprised he was 16 for 27. I thought it was worse than that. I think Taylor gets going. I'm not saying whatever it was, 185
and 5 touchdowns. Not quite that.
I don't know if that tied or broke a franchise record for total touchdowns in a game. Every year it seems like they win a game. You think, really, they beat
the Chiefs.
They beat the Chiefs, or they beat Baltimore. They beat Baltimore in Baltimore. So this is not a bad football team. It's just a mediocre team that's not making those 4 or 5 plays. I think they have a chance to do that, but I think Josh Allen, he just befuddles you. He's got to be he's up there with Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, where you have the perfect defense called perfect, and you run it for 5 seconds, and then he does something, and you've got to cover for 8 seconds, and he wins.
It's peak. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just think he makes too many plays to allow you to win.
I was going to say it's peak Vince Young, and Colts fans will remember when Vince Young was at his best in the NFL. And I've just heard stories from other people who were here covering it at the time when Vince would make a play and Bill Polian would just slam his fist in the press box because. Which is still one of the funnier things to me when the GMs are in the press box with the rest of us peons on road games.
I understand them pounding the table. That's their job.
Exactly. Completely.
But you're on our workspace.
Yeah, exactly. So that would accompany just an outburst, understandably, for those who know Bill, and the frustration with doing every stinking thing right, and the other guy still beats you. Which, as we wrap up this podcast, Chap, I mean that's why the Colts draft a guy like Anthony Richardson. You know, they're hoping for a guy like that one day that can, even though the other team does every stinking thing right on defense, like Josh Allen sees sometimes now, he gets out of it and makes a great play and leaves the offense on the field to make another play in the future.
And what we leave people with is at what point will this team readopt the it's going to be a roller coaster, but we've got to get this guy reps. I don't know when we'll be. It's got to happen at some point.
If the Colts cannot win with Joe Flacco,
then what are you doing?
It will happen sooner rather than later. And with that, we do appreciate you listening to this Colts Blue Zone podcast. Read all of Mike Chappell's work online, fox59.com, CBS4Indy.com. As he said earlier, got something on Michael Pittman Jr. up there right now that I'm sure you'll enjoy.
He's so cool.
He's great. I love Pitt. You can also follow Mike on Twitter at mchappell51. I'm Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports. Follow us as a collective at Colts Blue Zone, and we will see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.